much, especially.
You don't think it's getting better over the years?
I don't. I think that we had a point in time where race relations were getting better, but I think as the economy turned, President Obama became president, I think that everybody retreated back to their respective corners. But I can only speak for young African-American males. Young African-American males, because of over-incarceration, because of the war on drugs, feel like they are targets. And law enforcement views them as a danger to law enforcement. And unfortunately, they view law enforcement as a danger to them. And I think that if we can't fix that, then a lot of what we're doing will not reach the ultimate conclusion and won't hit home.
You see that in Minnesota as well?
Yeah, you know, in my state of Minnesota, a wonderful state, one of the lowest unemployment rates in the whole country, and yet the disparities are very, very wide. Average income in Minnesota is about $61,000 a year. For African Americans, it was $31,000 until it dropped to $27,000. And so there are vast disparities. And I think that, look, are things better than they were? Sure, but we come out of Jim Crow. We come out of a very bad history, and to be doing better than ever is not to be doing good. And so I just think we've got to work a lot harder on healing, and we have got to call on the business community, the law enforcement, and all sectors of American society to open up the doors of opportunity and to make sure that everybody feels included in the society.
Has the awful news of the past week brought, for example, the three of you closer together on these issues?
It has. And let me just say, because I want to be fair, the political discourse in this country has also added, I believe, to the bad race relations.
You think it's gotten
absolutely
deteriorated?
And I think that we bear a lot of the brunt of it. If we can't sit down and talk to each other, if we can't get past our differences, then what example are we setting for the country? But we're so negative and we're so nasty that I think that people feed into it. But I think the events of the last week have brought this Congress closer together, and I think it's going to bring the country closer together if we can all sit down and keep our eye on what's important, and that is a very peaceful, safe community with mutual respect.
You know, the three of us were together last week talking about, as relatively young black men, we all feel like that searching feels. I mean, we may have kids, right, but we also know that you take off the suit and put on the T-shirt, and we could be going through what Alton or Philando were going through, and we feel that personally and directly.
So when you're casually dressed and you're driving around Texas, are you fearful that a cop might stop you?
I have anxiety every day about being pulled
Every
over.
day?
Every day when I'm back home, and in D.C. for that matter.
Really?
When I'm not in
You
a suit.
too?
We're treated much, when I have on my suit and my congressional pin, even in the halls of the Capitol, I'm treated a lot differently by visitors and spectators when I'm dressed down and people don't realize that I'm a congressman. And I just think it's the world we live in, and I think that that's part of what we have to deal with. And then flip it, where in New Orleans you have 52% unemployment with African-American men. And I just think that we have to look at that as a direct problem and try to fix that problem. And I think that everything else will kind of come along with it.
Because we do have face it, we can fix it. And I believe that we can. But we've got to face it. And the president can help us face the reality. See, the problem is we can't talk about race relations in America without somebody feeling blamed.
Right. And
so we've got to get out of this thing of blame, shame, and say we've got a problem. We're not meeting liberty and justice for all. And we've all got to step up and make that a reality.
Because we do have an African-American president,
we got one,
an African-American attorney general, an African-American secretary of Homeland Security.
46 African-American members of the Black Caucus.
Yeah, you would think, and what I'm hearing you suggest, that race relations not necessarily getting better.
Well, when you start looking at 52% unemployment with African-American males, the question becomes, how does that affect race relations? And I think it absolutely affects race relations when you start talking about the economic divide. And if I'm at the bottom end of that economic divide, I'm angry. And I think that that manifests itself in a bunch of different ways. But we have to look at the economic plight of most people.
You know, the truth is, we have some of the most severe economic disparities since the Great Depression. And so it might be true that if you're an African-American surgeon or member of Congress and you look the part, maybe you can lead a certain life for a little while, unless you're mistaken. But the divide is so wide that the African-American poor and working classes, I think, are dealing with much tougher
I'll give you Congressman Veasey the last word.
No, I think that, again, we've made huge improvements. We still have a long way to go. And again, I'll be at the funeral tomorrow, the memorial service with the president, and very interested to hear what he has to say.
You flying on Air Force One with the president?
Yes.
I will have a coverage, of course, of that all day tomorrow. Let's continue this conversation.
Thank you.
Because as that surgeon, that trauma surgeon said, we need a dialogue on these issues. People try to avoid discussing these issues. We don't want to avoid that
Thanks, Wolf.
anymore. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.